So another NAMM has come and gone. This is my fourth time going to NAMM. And some things that I've realized about this show. It never, ever goes like you think it's going to go. That could be positive, that could be negative. Generally, when I've come, it's been very positive. But it is a little bit nerve-wracking and frustrating and overwhelming when you make a plan and nothing goes according to that plan. This year was no different for me. I had an amazing time working with Premier Guitar, covering a bunch of really cool stuff at the show. If you haven't seen those videos, go to their channel and you can find the videos I'm in, as well as a bunch of videos from the crew that was out here, just really hustling to bring, in my opinion, I'm slightly biased, but some of the best, if not best, coverage of the show. But in in the most surprising turn of events, I ended up meeting one of my heroes, and one John Mayer. And I tell the whole story on my Everything Mayer podcast. You can find that episode. I just dropped it actually the day after that happened. But I was fortunate enough to be invited to the Paul Reed Smith 40th anniversary party, where John, as well as many other incredible guitar players, performed to celebrate 40 years of guitar making with Paul Reed Smith. And well, should I tell the story here?
So the night begins to end, and one of the more surreal things that's ever happened to me happens. And John, I'm in the second row, and he looks out and he says, "Hey, I want to talk to you." And I'm thinking, okay, there's clear. I mean, the room is filled with unbelievable musicians and very notable people. So I'm like, thinking like, here, let me just kind of duck out of the way. He's like, no, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, me? He goes, yeah, you. I want to say hi to you. And I was like, okay. What do I do? I'm not going to jump on stage. I'll get tackled. So Bev from PRS comes to the edge of the stage and said, "Hey, come here, Tom." She used my name. And I'm like, "Hi." She's like, "Why don't you come over here?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll follow you." So I go to the side of the stage and I begin to walk up, small steps that lead you onto the stage from the floor of the venue, which are often there. And I'm immediately stopped by a security guard who says, "Hey, he doesn't have any credentials," to Bev from PRS. And she's like, "Well, John Mayer wants to say hi to him and talk to him." And she put the whole event together, so she's got all of the credentials. This guy wouldn't let me through. So he's like, "You need to come down off these steps right now." I'm like, "Okay." So I just came down off the steps, and Bev was like, "Just stay right here." So I just stood there, and I had a minute to think and say, okay, so one of two things is about to happen. I'm either going to not be allowed backstage and then have this hilarious story of John clearly recognizing me, knowing who I am, and saying he wants to talk to me, and then I can't get backstage and I can't talk to him, and likely, probably never will at that point. Or this is going to happen and I'm going to get pulled backstage and I don't know what's going on. John comes, he comes over and we proceed to have like just a very, very good conversation. So he gave me like a lot of time. And I thought I was just like, "Hey, how you doing?" Maybe grab a quick picture. Like, "Hey, I've seen some of your videos, like, great," and then move on. But dude, he was completely engaged with talking to me, like, longer than I deserved. Okay. Like, I'm grateful for the fact that he wanted to talk as long as he did. But just with like everybody else who was there, like I had no business being there. Which, I mean, I guess maybe I did. I don't know. I certainly didn't feel like I did. But he was so kind, so generous with his time, super, super complimentary, and just very kind. Like, that's all I can say. I'm not going to recount the whole conversation. I won't, I'm not going to dive into everything. I mean, there's nothing like crazy like that was discussed, but it's like, I'm not going to, try to give it to you word for word. But, John, if you're listening, thank you. It meant the world, and I told you that, and I meant it, and certainly was never on my radar to actually get to talk to you, but I'm so happy that I did. I hope we get to talk again in the future. that would be amazing in whatever capacity it happens to be.
Those are the highlights. Really, just incredibly grateful for the opportunity to cover the show with Premier Guitar, to reconnect with so many good friends that I've met in this business, meet a bunch of new ones, meet some of you who I only have known through the internet, and then ultimately I got to spend about 10 minutes one-on-one with someone who I greatly admire and look up to and have looked up to for quite a while. I started following John Mayer back in 2001. So gives you an idea of how old I am. I was very much old enough to go drive and buy a record of his at that point. So go back and check my last video about NAMM and working musicians and whether or not it is worth it for you. And I think you might find that interesting. A lot of exciting things can happen at NAMM, but it can also be very overwhelming and very difficult to make things happen if you've never been before or if you don't have some type of an anchor point at the show. So my thoughts are in that other video if you're a working musician and curious about coming out to NAMM and seeing what it can do for you. But I'm gonna go walk around. This is quite beautiful here, even though it's windy and a little bit cold. But I'm gonna enjoy my last few minutes here in California before I fly back to an even colder place. I'll catch you in the next one.